You open your eyes and you're lying on the ground in Western North America, except there's no America yet. There's no roads, buildings, or farms, and roughly 150 million years separate you from the nearest person that possibly could help you. And then something moves in the trees. It's enormous. For a second, you see the back rising above the vegetation, and then a neck, and then another neck behind it, and suddenly, the situation becomes very obvious. You've somehow landed in the late Jurassic. Now, your brain is probably immediately going to think one animal: T-Rex. Good news, T-Rex cannot kill you here. You're around 80 million years too early for that. But the bad news? The animal filling in that job in this particular ecosystem is much worse. It can grow to around 9 meters long, its mouth is packed full of serrated teeth, and it's one of the most common large predators preserved in this entire environment. But here's where things get weird. Because if I dropped you into the Jurassic right now, completely unprepared, the Allosaurus probably wouldn't be the thing you'd worry about first. Because you've actually got no clean water, no shelter, no medicine, you don't recognize most of the plants around you, and every basic thing you need to stay alive forces you deeper into the ecosystem built for animals very different from us. So we're going to find out how long an ordinary human like yourself could survive here, and more importantly, what would actually kill you first. First, we need to make this fair. The Jurassic lasts more than 50 million years and covers an entire planet, so dropping you into some imaginary mashup of every Jurassic animal wouldn't tell us much. We're putting you in one specific place, Western North America, roughly 150 million years ago, in the ecosystem that would eventually become part of the Morris Formation. And this place is ridiculous. The landscape around you is dominated by floodplains, river systems, wetlands, and seasonal stretches of drier land. There are conifers, ferns, horsetails, and lifelike plants, and walking through all of it are animals like the Diplodocus, the Apatosaurus, Camarasaurus, Stegosaurus. The Allosaurus is here too, along with other predators including the Ceratosaurus and the much rarer Travosaurus. And you're wearing whatever you normally have on: shoes, trousers, shirt, no survival bag, no gun, no antibiotics, and no convenient box of matches appearing in your pocket. And I'm giving you one rule: you need to survive, which means within minutes you've got to make your first decision. And it's already a bad one, because you need water. Humans are extremely good at noticing giant predators. We're much worse at being scared of losing water, because you're walking through a warm, seasonal, dry landscape, probably already sweating, and every minute you're moving, you're losing fluid. Dehydration initially gives you thirst, headaches, tiredness, and dizziness. Push it far enough, especially alongside heat stress, and the situation becomes medically serious. And in this time period, the Morrison Formation gives us evidence that this matters the most. This ecosystem had rivers and wetlands, but conditions change seasonally. Geological evidence points to the wet-dry cycles, high evaporation in parts, and even severe droughts. So you start to follow the lowest ground, and eventually you hear it, the running water. And suddenly your chances of surviving have improved enormously until you reach the bank. Because you found the same thing everyone else out here needs, and water concentrates life. Morrison's rivers and lakes support fish, turtles, amphibians, and crocodile relatives, while the surrounding floodplains support an absurd density of large animals. We'll get into that in a minute. So every time you need to drink, you have to enter one of the busiest parts of the ecosystem. We need to be careful here, because there's an easy bit of fake science people use in survival videos, claiming some mysterious Jurassic bacteria instantly destroys your immune system. Now, we don't know that. Most microorganisms are adapted to particular hosts and environments, and nobody can honestly tell you exactly how a modern human immune system would react to a Jurassic microbial community. The immediate problem is way simpler. You have no way to carry a lot of water, which means finding the river once isn't enough. You're going to have to come back again and again, and every trip repeats the risk. But hey, you've solved the first problem and accidentally created a reoccurring one. But by now you're getting pretty hungry, and this feels quite important. But it really isn't, not yet. Food can wait. Water, however, cannot. And to be fair, that's probably a good thing, because Jurassic cuisine is absolutely terrible if you're a confused 21st century human. You see, there's no apples conveniently hanging from the trees, no berries you even recognize, flowering plants had yet to even become part of the landscape, and the vegetation here is ferns, horsetails, and cycads. Now, some of that greenery may sound surprisingly normal, but it doesn't make it dinner. Modern cycads are a good example of why guessing is dated. That doesn't prove a particular Jurassic plant would poison you in exactly the same way, but it gives you good reason not to taste test and start munching down all these plants because they look familiar. So you make the smart choice. For day one, forget food. Conserve your energy, stay near the water source without sitting directly on the bank. Find some shade, try to work out somewhere to spend the night. And that's when you notice something huge moving through the trees. It's not a predator, which somehow makes the next decision even easier to get wrong. A Stegosaurus appears ahead of you, and for the first time since arriving, you see something you recognize instantly. Plates down the back, 4 spikes on the tail, a plant eater. Your brain immediately says, you're safe. Your brain has watched too many films. There's direct fossil evidence that those tail spikes were not decorative. Some Stegosaurus spikes show damage sustained during life, and one Allosaurus tail preserves a wound consistent with being punctured by a Stegosaurus spike. So think, that injury was inflicted on an Allosaurus, an animal several tons heavier than you, covered in muscle, evolved in this ecosystem, and armed with teeth and claws. You're a human in trainers, so you back away slowly. And that becomes one of the most important rules for surviving the Jurassic. Stop treating every herbivore like it's safe and part of the scenery. People always get this wrong, that they think herbivores are friendly and safe, because you are now around sauropods more than 20 meters long. Diplodocus alone could reach around 28 meters in the Morrison ecosystems. We don't need to pretend they're actively trying to kill people, but their size is enough to do so. I mean, you get close to one animal weighing many tons, and one frightened movement, one misplaced foot, or even a defensive reaction can end you and our experiment early. So now you've learned something useful. Avoid predators, avoid herbivores, and avoid unfamiliar plants. And don't forget, don't spend too long away from the water, because you don't have a way to transport it. This survival plan is going brilliantly so far, and daylight is beginning to disappear. Because there's another threat we haven't talked about yet: your ankle, your knee, or your hand. Or anything that breaks, because almost every survival problem we're dealing with relies on one ability. You have to move. You need to walk to find water, find shade, change positions when animals move through, gather materials for shelter, escape when something large approaches. Now imagine you slip down the bank. Nothing dramatic, you don't fall 50 feet, you just land badly. Your ankle twists beneath you. And in 2026, sure, that's annoying. Here, however, in the Jurassic, you've potentially changed the entire outcome of your survival situation. You're much slower now. You need more effort to reach water. You can't quickly change directions anymore. You can't climb easily. Every trip becomes longer, and it means more heat exposure and more dehydration. A significant injury in a world with zero medical supplies is already bad enough. And here's the really nasty part. The dinosaurs don't even need to catch a healthy human. They only need you to become exhausted or dehydrated or have a minor injury, which means the environment may actually be preparing you for the predators long before you even see one. Because the sun is going down now, and you've got another problem. Humans are absolutely terrible at seeing in the dark compared with many animals. We don't know enough about Allosaurus' behavior to confidently tell you it suddenly switches into night hunting mode. So I'm not going to invent that, but the danger definitely comes from the night and the lack of visibility. Every shape looks like an animal, and every noise sounds like it's really close. Moving becomes more dangerous, but staying in the wrong place could be just as bad. You've got no tent, and getting a reliable fire source without equipment depends heavily on your actual survival skills. Most of us massively overestimate how easy starting a fire from raw materials actually is. So you choose somewhere slightly elevated, away from the obvious animal trail and away from the water itself. You sit down and listen for hours. Something heavy moves beyond the trees. You hear another sound further away, then silence. And eventually, you realize something that might actually be worse than seeing a predator. You cannot see, and you have absolutely no idea where anything is. Allosaurus is the animal everyone expects to kill you. And to be fair, it has a very strong case. In the Morrison Formation, Allosaurus is overwhelmingly the most common large predator, with adults reaching roughly 8.5 meters in some estimates, while museums estimate closer to 10 meters. Its teeth were serrated and built for cutting fish. Recent chemical work in the Morrison Formation find that the dinosaur teeth there also support that Allosaurus as an opportunistic carnivore, feeding across several available herbivore groups rather than depending on one incredibly specialized prey species. Does this prove that the Allosaurus would see you and attack immediately? Well, no. No one can answer that. You're an animal it has never encountered before, far smaller than much of the prey around it, and predator behavior does not fossilize neatly enough for us to simulate an exact encounter. But if one decides you're worth investigating, you've got an enormous problem. Because you have no meaningful weapon, you're not intimidating to the Allosaurus, you cannot afford an injury in this case. And even if you wanted to escape, that would burn through water and energy, and the Allosaurus might likely hunt you down. But hang on a second. Imagine you hear movement outside of your shelter. A head appears between the trees, 2 ridges over his eyes. The rest of the animal steps forward, and it is that Allosaurus. You're looking at one. This is the encounter the whole video has been building towards, and weirdly, you might still survive it. Because believe it or not, predators don't attack everything they see. Maybe the Allosaurus keeps moving. Maybe it stops to investigate. Maybe your tiny size simply isn't worth the trouble. We cannot know. But the fact that there's a plausible version where the Allosaurus walks away creates a much bigger problem for tomorrow, because tomorrow you still need water, and morning arrives, you've just survived the night, no dinosaur ate you, congratulations! But you're now thirsty again, and you now need to repeat yesterday. Back to the water, back through the unfamiliar terrain, and back past animals you cannot reliably predict. And then back to the reliable shelter you've just managed to find or build. Every survival need creates another journey, and another journey to give the ecosystem another chance to hurt you. That is where I think most imaginary Jurassic survival scenarios go wrong. They treat survival like one boss fight. Beat the Allosaurus and you're good for the next part of the run. But your actual opponent is repetition. Because you need water today, you need water tomorrow, you need water the day after tomorrow. Eventually, you need calories. Eventually, you need to build a better shelter. Eventually, you get blisters. Your sleep gets worse, your judgment starts to go, maybe you become injured, maybe the weather changes. The Morrison ecosystem could experience both severe dry periods and sudden flooding. So even the landscape itself isn't guaranteed to stay on your side. And every day you remain here, the odds of an animal encounter increase simply because you're moving through the same habitat they are. How can you possibly know what to expect? The Allosaurus only needs one opportunity. The Stegosaurus only needs you to misjudge the distance or how safe a herbivore is. The riverbank only needs you to slip once, and that's without even slipping into the water where other dangerous predators lurk. Every day you need to keep getting the basics right or you're a goner. Now we can finally answer the question. If I had to bet on what kills an ordinary person completely underprepared in this specific Jurassic scenario, I'm betting it's not the Allosaurus. I'm betting on the environment. More specifically, your inability to secure reliable water while maintaining heat and physical exhaustion. Because dehydration begins affecting you long before starvation becomes the immediate problem. And I barely even touched on the heat stress here, because the heat stress can turn dangerously frightening quickly under the wrong conditions. Even when water is available, you've got no good way to transport it or store much of it. This literally repeats forced travel, and the repeat travel causes more chance of injury. So my survival ranking would go something like this. At the beginning, dehydration and heat are probably your most immediate predictable threats. Once you've solved that, injury becomes one of the biggest things capable of collapsing your entire strategy, and the longer you remain alive, the more important the animal counters become. Because eventually, you're going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Maybe it's beside that Stegosaurus, maybe it's near the river, or maybe you finally hear the footsteps you've been expecting since the moment you arrived, and this time, the Allosaurus doesn't keep walking past. It comes for you. So could you survive the Jurassic for 24 hours? Probably. You'd need a bit of luck, but merely being present in the Morrison Formation doesn't mean a dinosaur instantly appears and eats you whole. A few days? Things start to get a bit more complicated and ugly. A month with absolutely no equipment, medical support, or survival training? I don't like the sound or odds of that. And the part I find most terrifying is that the Jurassic didn't need a T-Rex to be lethal. It has the Allosaurus, Stegosaurus, crocodile relatives, massive animals moving through the floodplains? Heat, drought, injury, and one modern human who absolutely has no idea how this world works. And the story gets even stranger, because if you want to know how a T-Rex managed to survive completely alone on Isla Nublar for 11 years, well, that video is waiting for you right here. Massive thanks to the InGen research team who are on screen now. Couldn't do it without you guys.